Welcome to episode 9. And you can catch the replays on my YouTube channel under Rosalind Rourke. I'm so happy to be here with you. And I want to focus on one line from the text of A Course in Miracles. And it fits completely with non-duality. It's text chapter 18, section 7, paragraph 3. At no single instant does the body exist at all. It's always remembered or anticipated, but never experienced in the now. And you might say, well, I feel pain. Well, pain are sensations, and those are considered feelings. And then we have a story about pain immediately, especially pain versus sensations. And the story is about past and future. When we enter what I call the radical now, there is no story. That's the gift of it. How do we get there? How do we get to this place that's open and empty without a story? Well, let's start with whatever story we're telling ourselves. And one more thing before we go into that, I want to say something that I might forget later on. The image we have of ourselves is actually from outside. It's from the mirror, perhaps a feeling that we've now constructed a story, but we don't actually experience a body. We've experienced sensations. And then we put together who we are at that level from what we see. And that's a very new concept for some people. You don't actually feel bones. You don't actually feel the substance of a size, except insofar as a sensation. But the way we think of a body as a shape, that is from the mind. I hope I have made that clear. And that is why, one of the reasons why the Course can say what it does. At no single moment does the body exist. And the Course means this on many levels. All right, let's now try with this next experience to go underneath our perception of a body to the place where there's no story. So let's start with the body. Let's start as though there's a pain somewhere. Now, if I have said I have a pain, my next step, because I know pain equals story, is to say, all right, Rosalind, I heard you. Welcome that idea that I have a story. Allow the story, but don't get caught by the story. So the story might be, I'm never going to get rid of this pain. I'm trying to get rid of the pain. That means I'm in a fight with the pain. What does that mean for us? I hope it means that we know that when we're in a fight, we lose because the pain is already there. Doesn't mean it's going to be there next, but if I fight with it, I'm in a tug of war. But suppose I drop the fight. Now the next layer of story might come up. I've been to so many doctors, I've been on the internet, and I still, notice the word still, I still have this pain. Now that story represents the past. It's a prediction of the future. I still have that pain. Now there's my story of my grief, of separation, that all these doctors, all this searching, all of my life efforts, and I still have this pain. And maybe I add on, and I've done the forgiveness work, and I've been reading the course every day, and all my efforting. Let me allow that story. Oh, look how many stories I have. Let me expand into the knower of the stories. Let me allow the compassion. Opening up to the hurt. Perhaps it's a hurt child, metaphorically, that's still hurting from childhood on, and now is resorting to childlike, not childish, but childlike stories. And I say childlike because they're not adult. I remembered recently being so excited that I had a feeling of helplessness because I tend as a personality to be independent, and that averts feelings of helplessness. And the helplessness went to, I want this person to mentor me on this piece of work. I want her to edit it. And this feeling like I need, I have to have this. Well, that certainly doesn't come from an adult. Adult message would be, she'll say yes, she'll say no, or she'll say you have to pay again. Very simple. No helplessness in there. But I went to that imagined childhood state. That state of being truly helpless as a baby, believing, perceiving, experiencing, wanting, needing something. And maybe as I got older in childhood as well, things didn't happen as I would like. So in this moment of pain, I went back to a childlike state. We can do all of this in our minds. We can go to the adult state in our mind, and that's still the state of doing. It feels better than that helpless state, but it's still part of doing. It's still part of the separate self. Well, you might ask, we always do things in the world. Yes, but who's the doer? We are doing things on behalf of energy. We are not doing things on behalf of a body. And it's very subtle. There have been posts lately I've seen about, what about preferences? And choosing again comes up. Who is choosing again? Well, if we are to take the course literally, it's not a separate body. But as long as we still believe in any degree that we're separate bodies, it will feel like the separate self is choosing. What if what we are is awareness, the knower? In coarse words, it would be Christ consciousness. In the world of science, it would be consciousness, because they're still looking for this consciousness that they haven't yet found in the body. Some places in the Course, you might say it's referred to as the body-mind. I actually think that refers to still a body. So there's awareness, there's consciousness, there's Christ consciousness. And that's all in the now, even though there is no time, there's just now and now and now. And if we're not the body, if the body never existed, then what are we? If the I that we have always known as us, even though it's had an aging, even though the I experiences different thoughts and sensations and feelings at different ages, there is some consistency in that sense of an I. It can't be fixed in the body because the body changes. So what is that? The closest I can offer today as a portal is I awareness or I consciousness. And that's the same as the I that I am. So if we add I consciousness, now we're linking ourselves up to something greater than our bodies. The Course would call that God. Christ consciousness and God would be the same. God is the same as awareness, devoid of the personal he, devoid of the father, devoid of the you, devoid of the brother, just the isness of things. Now let's do what I offered a few minutes ago. Let's go beneath this body. For that, we have to leave the body and enter the space of the room, the space of the outside, the space of the stars, the space where the sky is beyond the clouds. And the space includes the weather, whatever the weather is. I invite you to consider your personality as the weather. I invite you to consider your feelings as the weather. I invite you to consider your thoughts as the weather. None of them are permanent. And the weather is a great metaphor because the weather always has opposites. But one thing about ourselves, even if we start to grumble about the weather, there is a certain way that most of us drop the fight of the weather because we soon learn we lose. The weather is the weather. If it's a flood, stay out of the flood. If it's a nice day, maybe there's an invitation to go out. So we include the weather, but we're not the weather. And we know that the weather is changeable. We are a manifestation of awareness. There's another line in that chapter that I will want to come back to. But notice when you start to come back inside the perceived, imagined body. Let's take another look at that sensation that you called pain, or that I called pain, or whatever it was that troubled us. Does it still have exactly the same experience that it had before? If you've been with me a while, even though I started with my imagined pain, probably you went without my instruction to the place that disturbed you. If you didn't, just put a new lens on what disturbed you earlier in your day. Whether it was a person, place, or thing, doesn't matter. It's all just part of the movie of you that we play like the weather. So let's come back into our bodies, just with a light touch, not believing that it's reality. That's all we're asked to do. We're not asked to go around saying, I don't exist, I'm not a body. We play, we're lucky enough to be alive and to play in the movie of ourselves. But just like when you watch a movie on Netflix, on your TV, you're involved with the movie, but you are not the movie. If it's a good movie, you got upset. If it's a good movie, you forgot yourself and you're into the movie. Well, that's the light touch. We can use our sensations to experience injustice and have compassion and respond. If there's something we are meant to do from awareness's manifestation, we'll do it. I offer now that fighting with even injustice is not as free a place as allowing awareness to move on it without all the vitriol. That's something that, as a Caucasian person, I'm probably not the final answer or advisor on that. I think to take the injustice and the pain of that, to allow oneself to be moved by awareness, which is what we are, I-awareness. So it doesn't mean we don't do anything in the world. We do, but it's all a question of, is there a separate doer, or is the movement coming through our bellies, through the energy of the universe? That's what quantum physics says. We are energy bundles, so we will feel all of this energetically. I like to think of quantum physics now as the electricity of a socket and what was I just thinking of? How do you say it? A plug and a socket. And so if we're the plug and we attempt to put ourselves into the socket of a separate self, a body, we might get a flare up, but we're going to get the same uncreative, in case that's a word, we're going to get the same repertoire that we've always had. I offer you something new here. If we put our plug into the socket of consciousness, awareness, God, but not a greater, bigger God, the God that we're made of. If we put the plug and the socket into that, brand new creation can happen through us. The unimaginable can happen, including the pain disappearing. But we can't do it in order to get the pain to disappear. When we're trying to get the pain to disappear, we're in a fight. We're in that tug of war with the pain. And that just gets more of what we've had. So if you don't have physical pain, just plug in the thing that you are most upset about. We can allow that radical now that we experienced from the stars and the space to hold as a background of what we are, to hold the upset. We're not skipping the upset. We're not fighting with the upset. We're not arguing with the upset. We're not using coarse lines to shut ourselves up. We're going to look at a sentence from Rupert Spira that I think is very useful. He often says, I am the open, empty, space-like presence of awareness in which my experience, including the sensations of a body, belong. So what does that mean? He says space-like, because we can open as a portal into this space, but it's very important to realize that the space has no boundaries. So that's why I like that phrase, space-like. And when he says, I am, there's the I awareness. I am the open, empty. For a long time, I've known this sentence. I got open, but I didn't get empty. And now I do. Empty means without the story. That means without preferences. It doesn't mean that we don't choose the chocolate ice cream if that is the movement, but we give no credence to preferences as a separate I. So
I'm all set.
I was interrupted there. I'm so sorry. I believe I was saying that in the part of the sentence, I am the open, empty, space-like presence of awareness. I understood open, but empty was something I didn't understand. And so when we have a story going on, like I prefer this, and I'm going to work on not having attachments and have it be, I would just like something instead of I need, want, crave, that it reflects some development. And I know the Buddhists talk about that. All I can say is what I've experienced in myself. When I started out 100% believing I was a separate person and came to A Course in Miracles, I could not have understood a sentence like, I am the open, empty space-like presence of awareness. I would have known every single word what it meant, and it would have been like speaking Japanese to me. I needed all of those steps in A Course, like choose again, forgiveness, my brother, my sister, God. I needed to go through those doorways to come to, perhaps we could say, a greater space-like place. And then you can see that if we don't think we're a separate self, even forgiveness is not relevant because there's nothing to forgive. And that's what the Course says. Ultimately, it says things which I couldn't have understood earlier. It says those things didn't happen. Earlier, the way I understood that from the capacity that I had at the time, it was that my judgments of the situation didn't happen because my experience is filtered through the judgment. Now I understand it actually didn't happen any more than my dream actually happened. So people get upset and then about, well, racial injustice happened. Yes, they happened in the dream. So it's not somebody else's experience was in the dream. Everybody's experience, including my family's heritage of being in Nazi prison camps and losing their lives. It's not one thing isn't real and another is. It's either all or nothing. But that doesn't mean we continue injustice. It means that when we know who we are, that kind of brutality does not happen. It's not possible. We don't kill another person because they're not real or we're not real or we won't really go to jail. We don't kill another person because those motivations are not there. We are the open, space-like presence of awareness, meaning we are awareness. We are the I am that I am. We are everything. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I think next time we're going to talk about grief and A Course in Miracles. Bye-bye for now.